Suspect in knife attack against customs officers arrested. Court grants 93-year-old doctor full discharge in patient death case. And Americans affected by the federal government shutdown in different ways. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. After a manhunt that lasted almost a week, a 38-year-old suspect was arrested in Yuen Long on suspicion of attacking customs officers with a kitchen cleaver in To Kwa Wan last week. Also apprehended was the suspect's family member who allegedly provided false information to mislead the police. The 38-year-old suspect was taken to the police's Kowloon West regional headquarters. After tracking the suspect down for 6 days, the police believe he moved between hideouts in Sai Kung, Hung Shui Kiu, and Yuen Long before he was located on the streets of Yuen Long Wednesday morning following tip-offs. Police took the suspect to his residence and seized 5 imitation guns, a crossbow, and several long knives. Also uncovered were 4 kilograms of heroin and other drugs worth $1.8 million. The 38-year-old faces charges including wounding, trafficking in dangerous drugs, and possession and imitation firearms. Police earlier rounded up 3 others with triad backgrounds for allegedly helping the man to flee or misleading the police. One female family member of the suspect was apprehended on suspicion of providing misleading information to the police. The incident happened last Thursday afternoon when 7 customs officers raided a flat at Honor Building in To Kwa Wan in an anti-drug operation. And the man attacked 2 officers with a kitchen knife, while another officer was also injured in the process. The assailant later locked himself inside the unit before jumping out of a 5th-floor window to flee the scene. 93-year-old Dr. Franklin Lee Wang Pong was earlier charged with manslaughter. He was found to have unlawfully killed a patient due to gross negligence. Today, he was discharged unconditionally in the High Court. Mimosa Ngai reports.
Lee arrived at the High Court to hear the verdict this morning. In 2018, at a beauty center in Tsim Sha Tsui, Lee administered Botox injections to a 52-year-old patient, but a combination of multiple medications resulted in her death. Lee was charged with gross negligence leading to the unlawful killing of a patient. In September of this year, a High Court jury unanimously ruled that the defendant, who suffers from Alzheimer's disease and severe cognitive impairment, was unfit to give a defense. Last month, the court held a special hearing, and the jury, under new oaths, unanimously found Lee to have killed unlawfully. Judge Anthony Kwok said during sentencing that the incident was an unnecessary death. Kwok said the defendant failed to immediately disclose to medical staff what medications he had administered to the victim. However, considering the defendant's old age and health conditions and the fact that he could receive better care at home, the court sentenced Lee to unconditional release. Lee's lawyer apologized to the deceased's family after the sentencing. Lee got into a private car afterwards. He did not answer questions from the press. Mamos 9, TVB News.
Food delivery platform Kita will implement a 2-phase amendment to its contract with partner restaurants after the Competition Commission says some provisions could affect market competition. The mainland food delivery platform is said to have prevented restaurants from partnering with other platforms. Mimosa Ngai reports.
Kita is one of the top 2 food delivery platforms in the market, the other being Foodpanda. In a statement, the Competition Commission says it noticed that Kita might have prevented market competition based on its original agreement with collaborating restaurants. One provision is that Kita would charge a lower commission rate from restaurants that it works exclusively. Another provision restricts restaurants from partnering with other platforms or face punishment. There are also prohibitions that hinder eateries from offering lower prices through their own channels or on competing online platforms. The competition watchdog says Keto holds a substantial amount of market power in the food delivery platform sector, and those provisions could stop new or smaller platforms from entering the market. After the Commission expresses concern, it says Keto agreed to voluntarily amend the terms in the first phase. For the second phase, the platform needs to demonstrate its commitment to the competitive watchdog in accordance with Section 60 of the Competition Ordinance. A representative of the food and beverage sector said they hope competition will bring down the commission rate, which the two major delivery platforms charge at about 35%. In response to media inquiry, Keto says it believes that healthy competition contributes to the sustainable growth of the industry, and it will continue to collaborate with the F&B sector for mutual success. Moments 9, TVB News.
Hong Kong remains in the grip of the flu season, with the dominant H3N2 influenza strain showing new signs of mutation. The latest studies found 7 mutations in recent H3N2 samples, which could increase its transmissibility. Researchers at the University of Cambridge's Centre for Pathogen Evolution have found 7 genetic changes in recent H3N2 samples, changes that could make the virus spread faster. Respiratory expert Professor David Hui from the Chinese University of Hong Kong explains, if 100 people have been infected, the earliest strain might spread to about 120 others. With this mutation, that number could rise to 140. The virus spreads more easily, but the level of severity has not risen. Still, he says the current flu vaccines remain effective. Hui says that doesn't mean the vaccine is useless, as it continues to tamp down the risk of hospitalization and death, and this year's flu inoculation still guards against H3N2, H1N1, and influenza B. Meanwhile, infectious disease expert Professor Ivan Hong from the University of Hong Kong knows that flu mutations are random and that the distinction between summer and winter flu seasons is now becoming less relevant. He says what matters most is whether the virus mutates and whether the community has sufficient antibodies, including the vaccination rates. These factors all influence when and how outbreaks occur, he says. He says that another wave of H1N1 influenza could emerge around February next year. The longest U.S. government shutdown in history could come to an end soon, with Democrats not getting the health insurance provisions they wanted and Republicans not escaping blame. The fallout of the shutdown, however, has landed on millions of Americans. Tracy Furness has more.
A little more than a year ago, Ryan Sprankle welcomed President Donald Trump to one of his 3 grocery stores his family owns near Pittsburgh. Trump was on the campaign trail and they talked about grocery prices. But these days, Sprankle would have a different message if Trump or any other lawmaker visited his store. Sprankle wants them to know that cuts to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, during the government shutdown has hurt his customers and his small independent chain.
When I first heard that it could happen, I'm like, there's no way they're going to let that happen. They might play games with other things. They're not going to play games with people's food going into the cold, going into the holiday season coming up. They're not going to use that, but they did.
The federal government shutdown has also created delays in some states of the program that helps millions of American families heat and cool their homes. The Berry family in Maine keep the cold out by insulating their broken window with what they can find.
We got a broken window in our boys' room, and we can't afford to replace it right now. So we're gonna put plastic on it to keep the cold out.
Berry is recovering from surgery for stage 4 stomach cancer and relies on government assistance.
We got diagnosed with cancer. I was out of work, and I needed help, and we got some heat assistance when we really needed it. It's kind of come from emergency funds, and the funds not being available this year are a little scary. So we're kind of buttoning up things a little tighter.
Meanwhile, the FAA has not put a timeline on when it will ease back on the flight limitations. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says the cuts won't go away until safety measures improve and staffing levels stabilize at air traffic control facilities.
Long after you all finish covering the shutdown, we are going to be stuck dealing with this problem where we're about 2,000 controllers short, trying to make up that difference.
Tracy Furness, TVB News.
And still ahead. Woman who defrauded more than 120,000 people sentenced to over 11 years in the UK. Protesters break into the COP30 venue in Brazil. Welcome back. A Chinese woman who was found with £5 billion or $6.6 billion in Bitcoin after defrauding more than 128,000 people in China in a Ponzi scheme has been sentenced to over 11 years in prison by a UK court. Daniel Rao tells us more.
Police! Police! Where you are?
Police said the investigation into 47-year-old Chan Zhemin led to officers recovering devices holding 61,000 Bitcoin in the largest cryptocurrency seizure in the UK. Chan, dubbed Crypto Queen by the British media, was arrested in April 2024. Prosecutors said she spent years evading the authorities and living an extravagant lifestyle in Europe. Police said she ran a pyramid scheme that lured more than 128,000 people to invest in her business between 2014 and 2017. This included many who invested their life savings and pensions. Authorities said she stored the illegally obtained funds in Bitcoin assets. When she attracted the attention of Chinese authorities, Chan fled to the UK under a fake identity. Once in London, police said she rented a lavish house for over £17,000 per month. She also tried but failed to buy multi-million-pound properties in a bid to convert to Bitcoin. Chan, who had pleaded guilty to money laundering offences and transferring and possessing criminal property, was sentenced to 11 years and 8 months in prison at Southwark Crown Court in London. A police spokesperson expressed hope the sentencing will help bring closure to Chan's victims.
Hopefully this brings some closure for victims in terms of the end of the criminal investigation and the principal architect behind the original Ponzi scheme obviously being sentenced. But I think it also sends a really clear message that London and the UK is no safe harbour for ill-gotten gains and for money launderers, and that we will relentlessly pursue with our national and international partners to identify, seize those assets and bring offenders and perpetrators to justice.
Chen was sentenced alongside her accomplice, 47-year-old Seng Hock Ling, Malaysian national. Ling was jailed at the same court for 4 years and 11 months after he pleaded guilty to one count of transferring criminal property. Dan Rao, TV News.
A Turkish military cargo plane crashed in Georgia near the border with Azerbaijan, killing all 20 on board. Ankara has not yet provided a reason for its deadliest military incident since 2020. It said Turkish and Georgian authorities began inspections at the site in Georgia's Kakheti district. The leaders of Azerbaijan and Georgia, as well as NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, have all conveyed condolences. Protesters forced their way into COP30, the UN's climate summit in Brazil. There were clashes with security as scuffles broke out. David Garrett reports.
No longer content with being on the outside, protesters mostly made up of native Amazonians forcing their way into COP30. The UN Global Climate Conference is taking place in their home. Others joined, pushing past fences and security staff as scuffles started.
They closed the doors, and this is the first moments of violence because they closed the door super hard, so you have like all these people and shut. So after this, it starts escalating a bit more and more. They break out the doors and finally breaking to the venue.
No reports of major violence. The UN say 2 security guards suffered minor injuries with ambulances on standby. The sustainability of the rainforest indigenous communities highlighted during this conference. The brief forced entry came after hundreds had marched to the site to get their message across that their lands must be free from farming, mining and logging. This followed another demo calling for Israel to be banned for what this group called the Gaza genocide. Dozens of pro-Palestinian activists accused Benjamin Netanyahu of sending a delegation to greenwash the occupation of the Strip. Inside, the focus was on the environment, a performance with a purpose. A graceful dancer aided by fellow activists chanting and clapping, demanding a shift to cleaner energy, away from coal, oil and gas. The dancer with a message as others called for leaders to move quicker.
Where I come from, the African continent, other parts of the world equally see it. It's important for us to understand that we cannot be coming here for 30 years. No action has taken place.
The US government has not accepted an invitation. The governor of California is at COP30 and says President Trump needs to get a grip.
And where the hell is the United States of America? We're ceding cheap energy, green energy, infrastructure, supply chains, manufacturing. We're ceding economic power to other countries, notably China, taking advantage of that absence.
After California again battled wildfires this year in pointed criticism of Donald Trump, who he accused of doubling down on stupid, Newsom says if you don't trust the science, you've got to believe your eyes. David Garrett, TVB News.
President Xi Jinping met King Felipe VI of Spain in Beijing. Xi says China is willing to cooperate with Spain to build a more stable, comprehensive partnership. A welcome ceremony was held this morning. Xi told King Felipe that the world's second-largest economy seeks to work with Madrid to boost the global influence of both nations as the heads of state met in Beijing for a signing ceremony at the Great Hall of the People to boost bilateral ties. The king arrived in Chengdu yesterday to begin a 4-day state visit at the invitation of Xi, with this marking his first trip to China since ascending the throne in 2014, and also the first visit by a Spanish king in 18 years. The U.S. announced last month it has seized over 120,000 bitcoins from Chen Zhi, a Chinese-Cambodian businessman suspected of running a transnational fraud network. Beijing claims those bitcoins had already been stolen by hackers as early as 2020. In Beijing's technical tracing report on the hacking incident, it says a Bitcoin mining pool operating mainly in China and Iran was hacked in late 2020. The report says the Bitcoins belonged to Chen Qi, chairman of Cambodia's Prince Group. At the time, the assets were worth $3.5 billion, but their value has since risen to around $15 billion. Investigators say the stolen bitcoins remained untouched for 4 years in digital wallets, behavior inconsistent with typical profit-driven hackers, but more like a state-level precision cyber attack. The report alleged that U.S. government hackers may have carried out the theft themselves. American media, citing official responses, say the seizure was a lawful action targeting criminal proceeds. A touch of winter is on its way. The Hong Kong Observatory forecasts a significant temperature drop next week, with the mercury expected to fall to just 16 degrees Celsius next Wednesday. A dry northeast monsoon is bringing fine weather to southern China over the next few days. Come early next week, a strong surge of the northeast monsoon is set to reach the region, bringing the minimum temperature to around 17 degrees Tuesday before sliding further midweek. And here is a reminder that due to our showing of the national games, tomorrow's main news will start at 10 p.m. And thank you for watching.